everyone to the New Carlisle City Council meeting for May 7th, 2007. May 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. Sorry. We went back in time there. So anyway.
Well, you are the one with the DeLorean.
I was going to say Back to the Future.
So, all right. So we will go with the roll call. Ms. Berner, when you're ready, please.
Okay. Councilman Cobb,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Eggleston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cook,
Yeah.
Mayor Lowry,
Here.
Councilman Grimm,
Here.
Councilwoman Hopkins,
Here.
and Councilwoman Nowakowski.
Here.
7 members present.
Great. Thank you very much. And tonight's invocation will be by Vice Mayor Cook.
If you will, bow your heads. Our Heavenly Father, please guide us through this meeting tonight. Provide us with the necessary information that we can make a concise, I guess the word is, idea of what we're doing. Please bless our first responders. In Father's name we praise. Amen.
Thank you very much, sir. And the flag, Mr. Grimm, we will do the Pledge of Allegiance as best as we can. All right. I pledge allegiance
To the flag
of the United
United
States of
America.
America, to
And
the
to the
republic
republic
for
which
which
it stands,
stands
One nation,
one nation
under
God,
God, indivisible,
indivisible,
liberty and justice.
justice for all. That is really tricky with all the delays. So,
we did pretty good.
all right, so we pledge allegiance, action on minutes, none, communications, none, city manager report. Randy, did you have anything you need to go over under the report?
no, sir.
Okay. So comments from the members of the public. I don't know if you have anything yet, since we've kind of sped through this section, so.
I do not have any new current emails. However, I did talk to a resident today who should be reaching out to a few members of council regarding the speed limit on 571. It was a very good conversation, and I really do hope that he does reach out to some members of council. So this gives everyone a heads up on that.
Okay, great. And if something maybe pops up,
Sure, I got it here.
great, maybe we can go back, since maybe some people weren't expecting it to go this quickly.
Sure.
So great, thank you. So committee reports, none, resolutions, none, ordinances. We will drop down to ordinances. Thank you for sending this out again, Mr. Bridge, and the time you've spent on it. And Ms. Berner, we'll let you start the ordinances off for us.
Okay. Tonight we have ordinance 2020-15, introduction tonight, public hearing and action on 5/18/2020, and ordinance giving city manager authority to negotiate the purchase of real property.
Thank you.
All right, our next one, we have ordinance 2020-16E, introduction, public hearing, and action tonight. An ordinance providing for the transfer of funds from the Twin Creeks Infrastructure Bonds Debt Retirement Fund to the general fund of the city of New Carlisle.
Thank you.
May I have the floor, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Would at this point we break rules of council and discuss how council wants to pay for this property? Second.
Okay, so we had the motion by Mr. Vice Mayor and a second by Mr. Cobb to break rules of council to discuss the potential purchase of another building.
All right, we ready for the vote?
Yes.
Okay. Councilwoman Eggleston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Lowry,
Yes.
Councilman Grimm,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilwoman Nowakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Cobb.
Yep.
That motion's accepted 7-0.
Thank you very much. So, Mr. Bridge, would you like to kind of start off and just go over with where you're at and where we stand with what you've come up with over the past few days with the current city building that we're in?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council, members of public. We're in a kind of unique position. We do not own the current city building that we are. We all know that we've been renting that space for numerous years. So the goal was, when we got done with the renovation downtown, that we were going to purchase the building anyway and move the substation down there. Tear down the current substation, which is in very bad shape, and then use that for a fire department expansion, whether it be a parking lot or whatever the need is down the road. But unfortunately, the owners of the building are wanting to put it on the market. They do not want the building in their portfolio anymore. So that puts us in a position that we have to make a decision about a year earlier than what we originally intended for. So the ordinances tonight in front of council, there's quite a few, but the first one is the ordinance 2020-15, excuse me. That allows me to go forward and actually purchase the building itself. Now, our charter states that we cannot do that by emergency ordinances, which is why it's introduced tonight and then voted on at the next meeting on the 18th. It does have to sit for 7 days. So that's definitely going to have to be voted on tonight. Now, there's the remaining ordinance, B, C, D, and E. Council's going to have to decide how you guys want to buy the building, whether it be cash and we can transfer funds out of the Twin Creeks Fund and the Twin Creeks Infrastructure Debt Fund. That is a fund that we usually transfer about $78,000 a year from the general fund to make the bond payments for the infrastructure up there. Well, about a year after I took over, we decided to move forward with a lawsuit. And we actually ended up settling that lawsuit and got about $130,000 settlement out of it. So we went ahead and put that in that particular fund. That fund was also supplemented with additional revenue by the land reutilization program that we entered in when the Twin Creeks parcels were defunct. And that worked out great because now we're seeing housing developments up there. So that particular fund has around $323,000 or $330,000 in it. So should council choose just to transfer $140,000 out of that and put it in the general fund, we can just buy it outright. It would have no impact on our general fund budgeted appropriations. I know we're discussing about the CIP and how we can continue on saving money with maybe holding off on the building renovation for a few months downtown, which would save a big chunk of change out of the general fund, as we could tell by the Excel sheet that I gave council for the last meeting. And the other ordinance is if you do want to finance. So I did reach out to the bank, and the last page of the packet that we have is the email that I got from the bank for a mortgage scenario. And the purchase price is $140,000. We would be required to put a 20% down payment on that, and that's $28,000. So we would actually finance $112,000. On a 10-year note at 4%, our monthly payment would be $1,135. We currently pay about $1,870 a month now in rent. That $1,135 does not include taxes or insurance. So, and then the Ordinance D and Ordinance E are simply the authority for me to either put the down payment down of $28,000 or to expend the full $140,000, because my monetary limit to enter into contracts is $20,000. So council definitely needs to look at the first ordinance, because if we don't buy the building and they sell it, we're going to have to be out at a certain time. And unfortunately, we don't have anywhere to go.
Right.
So ordinance A was just introduced tonight. So that's definitely going to have to be voted on at the next meeting. I'm assuming council is going to pass that legislation. So tonight we need to focus on how council wants to move forward with paying for the building.
Okay. Well, I will, if it's okay with council, I'll just kind of go down the line here and get everybody's opinion like we do in a normal council meeting. We'll start with, let me think here, Mr. Bridge.
Yeah, can I just say one more thing too?
Yes, sir.
I got our update for our CCA deposits for our income tax collection for the month of April. So for an apples to apples comparison, April 2019, so this time last year, we did receive $153,763 from CCA in comparison to April 2020 deposit, which we just got a few days ago, of $104,225. So for April apple to apple for this year to last year, we are down at about $49,530. However, Overall, January, February, March, April 2019 to 2020, we are actually up $5,000. So at this point in time last year, we had collected $479,140, and currently we have collected $484,386. So we're up $5,225 from this point in time last year. I am expecting May and June to see additional revenue decreases. A few weeks ago, I sent an email out to council saying I was projecting that to be maybe $80,000 to $100,000 off of revenue because of the COVID. So if this trend continues into May and June, that $80,000 to $100,000 is look like it's what it's going to be. And of course, those are all speculative numbers until we have the raw numbers that we receive from CCA. So I just want to let council know at this point in time, we are still actually up compared to last year.
Okay, great. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
So we'll, if it's okay with council, we'll just get some feedback. We'll start down with Ms. Nowakowski.
Is there a possibility that we could look at the transfer of funds from Twin Creeks as self-financing and paying it back with interest into the account?
That's definitely something we can do. Absolutely. I mean, if we make that recommendation, I just want to do it interest free and just do, hey, we're going to loan that general fund that money and the general fund can make the payments.
Right.
So that is a very creative idea.
I mean, what is that earning now?
We have Star Investment Ohio, so it's not like each individual line item is invested. We just invest.
Okay.
So we get around, right now we get around $30,000 to $40,000 a year in interest. So our investment banking account is about $1.1 million in it. And we do every year, we've increased our interest based on that. So if you look at the budget historical thing, which says interest earnings, you're going to see that continue going up from year after year. But I think off the top of my head, we usually get about $30,000 to $40,000 based off the Star Ohio investment. And we also have CDs and some other things, but our big interest making account is Star Ohio.
What type percentage is that, Randy? Can you tell?
I don't know off the top of my head, sir.
Do you have anything else, Ms. Nowakowski?
No, I mean, I would just like to see us pay the interest to ourselves and not, by pulling the money out of that account, we're losing money that's making money for us.
Right.
So if we were to essentially self-finance it, take it out of that account, and then each month put something back into that account with interest, that means that that account stays whole in the end.
So
The money that we've got from the lawsuit could have been just deposited into the general fund. But that particular council wanted to put it into Twin Creeks because every year the general fund transfers, like I said, $78,000 into that fund to pay that debt payment. So, I mean, I guess it's a possibility to take it out and repay it, but it's money that potentially could have went to the general fund anyway. So I'm not sure if that would be the best option.
but either way, you wouldn't be paying. We
Charge at interest. That's what I'm saying. Like it'd be very acceptable to take it out and have the general fund repay that fund over time. But the charge at interest, you're causing the general fund to actually pay more than what they did for a fund that could be interchangeable.
right. You wouldn't charge it.
Yeah, I understand.
We wouldn't charge ourselves interest. We would just pay back the exact amount.
Similar like how the general fund loaned the water fund, the money
Right.
for the power maintenance program. And I understand where Councilwoman Nowakowski is coming in, and it's a very good analysis. But that 1.1 we have in the Star Ohio is it's separate. It's not part of that 323. So for us to go and say, this 1.1 is a little bit out of the water fund, a little bit out of that, it's not like that. It's just money that we have in there. Now, that money usually is impacted by our general fund. We will pull out of that. So that Star Ohio really doesn't have any impact on the Twin Creeks debt fund, if that makes sense. If I'm explaining it clear enough.
Right. But I mean, I'm assuming, Ms. Nowakowski, you would much prefer pay for it slash, quote unquote, finance it ourselves through our
Right.
own funds versus
Absolutely.
Yeah.
going through a bank.
Absolutely.
Sure.
Okay, so great. Okay, so anything else to add, Ms. Nowakowski?
That's a very good idea.
That's
Yes.
fine.
Okay. All right, Mr. Grimm, we'll head to you next, sir.
I have a couple of questions. Have we had the building appraised?
The building has not been appraised. They're listing it for 169.
Okay. That's usually the first step in purchasing property.
We don't have time to get it appraised. We have to get back with them for a decision.
Well, we jumped into the building downtown without any,
That is
any
not,
backwork.
that is not a true statement. We actually
Yeah,
have.
that building was appraised.
And people just think the auditor assessed value is what the sell value is, and that's not how that works.
No.
The assessed value, yeah. We actually got a really good deal on the building downtown.
That's
What was
correct.
What was it appraised at?
I don't have that information in front of me, sir. But yeah, we went through all that with the previous council. We had all the inspections done on it, the appraisal done on it, all that good stuff.
What about closing costs? How much are they gonna run?
Well, that's if we finance, that's what we're going to have to do. And closing costs, that's why the ordinance is written that says 100, not to exceed 140,000 for the sale of the building, excluding any kind of fees associated with that. So closing costs, I don't want to speculate, but I mean, maybe 2, 3, 4%.
Well, I would say finance it because we don't know what the future is gonna hold.
Well, if you finance it, you're going to actually paying a little bit more. As I sent that email out to council, if you take the 1,135 payment, you multiply that by 125. I mean, I sent the email out to council today, and I can't pull it up because I'll lose my thing. We end up paying an extra about $36,000 for that building if we finance it.
But if something happens and we need the money and we don't have it,
But it's not coming out of the general fund.
with the,
That's
with
the part that I'm agreeing to.
with the uncertainty until things get squared away, until everybody gets opened back up, we get back to some semblance of normal. I think we ought to hang on to what cash we have.
Okay,
Mhm.
thank you, sir. Anything else? Mr. Grimm, anything else?
No,
Okay, thank you. Ms. Hopkins, if you have anything to add or questions, please.
Yeah, I have a couple. Surprise. One, on that information you sent out, what is the 5/ adjustable rate mortgage? Is that 5 years and 5%? You know what I'm talking about? It's in the email that came from Lori.
To me, that would mean for the first 5 years, maybe you have a set rate, and the last years it may go up. It'd be maybe a variable rate.
Okay, I was just curious. I think we should find that out if we decide to finance it. But now, the funds that are in Twin Creeks, is the only thing we pay out of that is 78,000 a year?
Yeah, and that goes down every year since we refinanced that. So every year it goes down a little bit. Last year we have the actual fee, and then we have all other associated fees that comes with it. But yeah, I think around 76 to 78 a year comes out of that.
Okay, and you said we have, I'm sorry,
And that is transferred in from the general fund.
but do we have to transfer it into from the general fund if we have the funds in there?
When we put that in there, the council at that point in time instructed me to sock that money away. Because we will be able to refinance those bonds in November of 2020. We were hoping that our bond rating would have improved since we've cut off so much debt, but our bond rating has stayed the same. So there may be no point of refinancing those bonds in 2020 if we're not going to get a cheaper rate.
Okay, but what comes of the money that's in Twin Creeks? So we just sock that away to sit there?
Right now, it's just sitting there because really what that money was going to be used for with the last council was that most of that money was going to be used for the big down payment for the building downtown.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Now, what,
Put a
and
large
how much,
towards downtown, the downtown renovation.
how much do we have in there now, that fund?
About anywhere from 323 to 330.
Okay, well, let's say the low 323. And if we take out, what would it be, 140,000?
140. Yep.
Okay, and if anything ever happened to where we needed money from that fund, we could do something to transfer it to the general fund of what's left. Is that correct?
Yeah. If you put out the 140, that fund will still have approximately $183,000. So
And so if we need some kind of backup, we would have that. I really feel that if we paid $140,000 for the building, we would be saving, the interest. I know we could pay it down later, but it's also an adjustable rate mortgage. Plus, we wouldn't have that 1,100 payment. And like Linda said, we could pay that back to the fund. And then if we had problems, we still have that $1,100 a month to work with. So I think it'll really save us money if we purchase the building, pay cash. And if we finance it, we're going to pay closing costs, and then we're going to be paying interest. So that's my vote.
and a monthly payment, and that's a good point. So if you guys pay cash, we no longer have a monthly payment for that.
Right. All right. Thank you, Ms. Hopkins. Anything else?
No.
All right. Thank you very much. Just my instant thoughts are, I like the idea of not having to pay the extra interest. I know there's not an early payoff fee if you were to pay it off early. But also, I don't know if I want to add to and I don't know where we are on that. I don't even think you would understand, or I don't know if that's something you'd be aware of, Mr. Bridge, where we are as far as our debt to income ratio. So I didn't know if we should add to that when we may not need to, in my opinion. So, I mean, I like the idea of paying it outright, especially if you are comfortable with it. You're looking at the books a whole lot more often than we are, but still, I mean, to me, I just think it makes sense to buy it outright and save ourselves a little money. That's all my 2 cents. Mr. Vice Mayor, I'll hand it over to you, sir.
Well, number one, my thought is to go ahead and finance this. And I'm basing that upon the fact of nobody knows what this virus is going to do to our funds.
Right.
I would much rather have the cash in hand in case we have to do something. Something goes down at the water sewer plant, we've got the money. That's my total take on it.
All right. Thank you, sir. And Ms. Eggleston.
I think, I agree with Linda and Amy. Why can't we take it out of the Twin Creeks and pay ourselves back? I would rather pay ourselves back than pay a bank back.
Right.
Councilman Eggleston, you have many years in the banking experience. I mean, that makes the most logical sense. I mean, if we loan it ourselves and then we pay it back at interest-free loan, and then we don't have the monthly payment on top of that, that seems like it would be a logical way to approach.
I mean, I would rather pay myself back than I would rather than pay a bank back and it costs me more.
Because it's going to cost, what did we say? It'll cost us around an extra 30,000 if we finance it.
Yeah, the numbers, the email about 36.
Yeah. Okay.
And that takes a risk. And I commend everyone's honest opinion. I can see everyone's both ways. And God forbid we're to the point that we have to stockpile our money. But if we do have to stockpile our money, at least we own that. We don't have to worry about making a monthly payment on it.
Well, let me ask. Well, okay. Never mind.
Mr. Mayor,
Sir.
we don't, if we finance it, we don't have to let it run the whole time. We'll know
That's right.
with any, so
True.
how they're going to work out. We can
Well, how
always pay it off once things straighten out a little bit.
Well, how would that work? And I'll
Can-
get to you in just a
can-
second. Just hang on just 1 second. How would that work, Mr. Bridge? If say we did finance it, let's just say for conversation's sake, we paid it off in 1.5 years, would we still pay that? Well, yeah, we would still pay that full interest amount, correct?
No,
No, not at all. Not at all. We would pay, I mean, say we would, no, because that's just taking the full 120 payments. But
Okay.
so we would save on that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we wouldn't pay that whole 36. No.
Okay. Ms. Nowakowski, go ahead.
I am so sorry that that escaped me, because that's what I've done with my house here that I bought. I made my first payment, and then I made the principal payments that were scheduled for the entire rest of the year in the first payment. That's almost nothing. And that meant that I saved all that interest for the entire year, except for the first payment.
Okay.
Yeah, that's another really good way to think about doing it. Pay extra payments, principal payments each month. And then if in 6 months we find that we need to have more money, you stop doing that, and then you've got the cash that you can still deal with the issues the way Mr. Cook wants to do it.
Or we could
Let
go
me-
ahead and pay
let-
a mortgage what we're paying in rent.
Let's jump down, if you guys don't mind. Let me jump down to Mr. Cobb, because he's the last one we hadn't heard from in the lineup. So Mr. Cobb, if you would, please, if you have anything.
Oh, yeah, I mean, y'all gotta look here. This thing comes back in October. We're gonna be right back in the same place we've been. Nobody's working, no taxes are coming in. Finance would be the best. If it does improve, we get better next year, pay the loan off. But right now, we've got to save money. Where there's no ifs, ands, or buts. You know, we don't know what's ahead.
Yeah, but
And this-
wouldn't you be a little more comfortable knowing if it does go down that you actually own the building you're in, you don't have to worry about making a payment? And if the finances get that bad, you're still going to be responsible for those mortgage payments. And at that point in time, I would rather just go ahead and pay the building in cash. And if cash gets that strapped where we have to make serious decisions, I'd rather just take out a loan for what we need to get by through the rest of the year.
Yeah, but what happens if something goes wrong with the water plant? What happens if something goes wrong with the wastewater plant?
Well, that's when the general fund can kick in, because we're going to save a lot of money by not doing the building renovation. The general fund is not impacted by the Twin Creeks fund paying for that building. You still got all that money in the general fund that we carried over, and then two, the money that we're going to hold off for the CIP. But if it gets to the point that we're that bad, I'm going to reiterate, I'd rather much already own the place I live. That way, if our finances are that bad, we at least got a roof over our head. And
You've got a roof over your head. You're just going to make payments on it until we can see how this is going to turn out. This is what we got to look at. You got people who can't even pay the water bill. And you know they're not paying taxes. So we've got to do something. It's better to finance it. Once we get in a better shape, pay the loan off.
And I'll have to admit, I didn't even think of that option. I mean, Mr. Bridge, I mean, what do you think about that? I mean, and I didn't think about it until Mr. Grimm had said so. If we did finance it and say this time next year, it looks like everything's going good as far as the virus and the money's, hasn't been, slowed down as far as trickling into the city as what we may have thought or was worried about, and then going ahead and paying it off in 1 year or so.
well, this is the way I look at it. I mean, I appreciate everyone's opinion, but okay, say that happens. So now we're going to pay this loan off, and say there's $100,000 left in that balance. So now we got to pay that loan off. Now we have to take out another loan and start financing the building for downtown that we're going to be renovating. So at some point in time, you're going to have these two massive expenses come right together. If you finance this thing, you're going to pay it off down the road. So that's why I'm saying you look at that. I like the idea of paying for cash, and then if and have the general fund actually repay it if you guys want it to be repaid.
Yeah.
But I understand everyone's position, but at some point in time, we're gonna have to start financing the renovation downtown. And the payment on this loan, and then the bond and payment of the building downtown, we're gonna have to make a decision, you know, if those two can collide at about the same time.
Mr.
Right.
Bridge,
Sir, yes, sir.
when we discussed the other night, we wasn't gonna touch the building downtown for 1 year if we bought this building we're in now.
That is a council decision, and it was a recommendation if we put it off to October, November. So that would be something council would have to decide, and that is an option. But when we put it off to October, November, again, we're gonna have to pay this loan off because we're still making payments on it. And then, you know, say if we need to go out and get financing of $600,000 for the building downtown, our debt to income ratio is gonna be a little bit higher. So now we run the risk of getting a higher interest rate based off the $600,000 amount, because we have so much debt to income ratio. We also just added 160,000 for the clarifier project. So, you know, we've done a good job at reducing our debt. We added for the clarifier project. We're gonna put more money on to finance this building. The wastewater department didn't have the cash to pay for it outright, so we wanted to finance it. So,
May I add something?
sure.
Okay, if we finance it, we'll have like 4,000, around 4,000, I think, roughly in closing costs. Also, I've got like, if it's 4%, it would be 4,480. Also, if we're paying cash for it, the only thing we have to pay is taxes and insurance. And we have that other money we can put back into the Twin Creeks Fund. Now, the Twin Creeks Fund, was that in our CIP?
No, no.
Okay, so that's extra money right there. And if we pay cash for the building, we'll still have $183,000. And then we can put the monthly money that we financed ourselves back into Twin Creeks. We have any kind of major problem, we still have 180 in the Twin Creeks, and we'll have that 1,100 each month. Really, we're saving 1,800 by not renting, but we'll have the 1,100 that we're putting back in Twins Creeks that we could use if we have to. And all this without touching the general fund. And I think it's really smart because we won't have the interest rate. And I'm not sure of the terms on that loan. I know it's 4%, but we got a 5/5 on adjustable rate mortgage. So there's something that would be in the future. And if for some unforeseen reason, we couldn't pay that off quicker, we'd be stuck with those amounts. If we had it paid cash and something happens where we need more money than we have, we could finance that building. And it would be paid off. So,
Thank you very much. Good points.
I like Amy's idea.
Okay.
Council has a tough decision. Everyone.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I see both sides to it. The one thing that tips me a little bit more to the paying the cash side is the, you know, the debt to income ratio. I don't want to really add to that if possible.
I agree.
So does council, you know, so we are on, let me see here. Let me get back to my notes here. I had to fly out here so quick that I was disorganized and I apologize. So does anybody else have any more comments, or do we want to move forward with this as far as this first piece of?
Let me ask a question here, Mike.
Yes.
Are we still in tune to put the 5th deputy on?
He's already on.
Yeah, I think he's on.
Okay,
I
he's already on.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Now,
met-
I guess I'm in a quandary as to whether or not the police levy is going to pay the income off of the police levy. Is it going to pay for everything that we need for the 5th deputy and our present situation?
Do you understand this? He's wanting to know if where we are now with the 5 deputies, you know, and any of our expenses there, is the fund for that going to cover it completely on its own?
Well, I mean, we had a little bit, we carried over a lot from last year, so I'm not really worried about that particular fund for this year, possibly the next. But it's still, it's a tough question because we don't, right now we get charged per deputy and what their step it is and then their rate of insurance. So, I mean, right now it's set because we know what it is, but if we have a deputy switched out that has a full family plan or is more experienced and gets a top step, I mean, that kind of stuff's coming in. But I'm not really worried about that fund. I think we carried maybe $200,000 or $300,000 over from the previous years. So that's good right now.
My concern is, and I think Mr. Cobb and Mr. Grimm both have proven the points that we need to hold on to this cash. But again, whatever the vote comes out to be, it has to be. But the only thing I can say is we come down to the end of the year and we're going to end up needing money. Katie, bar the door.
Thank you very much, sir. So on this ordinance, we will be, and stop me if I'm wrong, Mr. Bridge, this ordinance, which is the transfer from the Twin Creeks Fund to the general fund, that would be in order to, if we were going to pay cash for the building, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so moving forward on this, if you want to finance it, you would be voting no on this. If you wanted to pay cash or, with city funds, you would be voting yes on it. So.
Yes.
All right, so did we, Ms. Berner, did we already have a motion on this one?
No.
No.
Okay.
No.
I couldn't remember. Okay, so. If,
I
nobody-
don't, I haven't even, did I read it already?
No,
I didn't
no?
think I read it either. I think we
Okay.
just went to the first one and,
Okay, would you like to go ahead and read it?
yep, I sure can. Ordinance 2020-16E, introduction, public hearing and action tonight. An ordinance providing for the transfer of funds from the Twin Creeks Infrastructure Bonds Debt Retirement Fund to the general fund of the city of New Carlisle. I think I did read it actually, but that's all
I
right.
thought, thank you very
So
much.
move.
Who
second,
was that?
No,
Okay,
that's,
so we had a motion by Ms. Hopkins and a second by Ms. Eggleston.
Okay.
sorry.
And any other discussion before she calls for a vote?
One other thing, this one, if you want to pay cash, you say yes.
Correct,
Mhm.
Yeah, okay, just wanted to make sure everyone understood that.
correct. Thank you. right.
And just to double check also, it's an emergency, so does this one, okay. All right, so my second was Eggleston. Vice Mayor Cook.
No.
Thing, this one, if you want to pay cash, you say yes.
Whoa, correct.
Yeah, where'd that come from?
That's weird.
Really?
Mayor Lowry. Double check also, it's an emergency, so does this one, okay. All
Okay,
right.
hold on everything, Ms. Bernard.
Yep.
Let's see if that plays out.
No. Thing, this one, if you want to pay cash, you say yes.
Whoa,
Well, where'd that come from?
Someone
That's
listening
weird.
to the live feed.
Really?
Mayor Lowry. Double check also, it's an emergency, so does this one, okay.
Who
Hold
has,
on,
someone
hold on
has a
everything,
live
Ms.
feed
Bernard.
on.
let's see if that,
Mr. Bridge, whenever the live stream is playing, your box is highlighting, just an FYI.
Yeah, I turned it off. I have no clue how it got turned on.
okay, are we cleared up?
Yeah, sorry.
That was-
Okay,
Okay, so we're back to the vote.
and we're at you, Mayor Lowry.
Yes,
Councilman Grimm,
No.
Councilwoman Hopkins,
Yes.
Councilwoman Noakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Cobb,
No.
Councilwoman Eggleston.
yes,
That ordinance needed 6 yeses to pass because it's an emergency, correct? So that one
Correct.
fails.
correct. All right, thank you very much for that. And we will move on to the next ordinance, please.
Okay.
When you're ready, take your time.
We are on 2020-17E, introduction, public hearing and action tonight. An ordinance authorizing the city manager to enter into a financing agreement for full or partial payment of the purchase of the current city building and declaring an emergency.
Okay. And Mr.
So
Bridge, you
moved.
need, no, thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor.
Just a second. B did not say it was an emergency, but C does. And we voted on B as an emergency. The
Okay.
2020-16E.
B is an emergency. It's in the title.
Yeah, see
When I say
2020-16E.
The
Where's
E
the
is
top?
the emergency.
Oh, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it's tricky sometimes to see it.
okay.
Okay, so we had a motion by Vice Mayor. And do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Grimm.
Can I say something real quick, sir? I'm so sorry.
Your shirt, yes, sir.
So those who voted yes to pay cash, we do need this one to pass.
Correct.
We can,
So I
move-
mean, because there's no other option.
yeah, there's really no other option. So,
Correct.
yeah, I just wanted to make everyone aware of that.
Right. So, okay. So yeah, I mean, since the original motion to more or less start the process to pay cash has failed, the only option to move forward would be to finance it.
Sure.
So, okay. All right. Did you have anything else to add on this before we vote or took a vote, Mr. Bridge?
Yes, if this one should pass, then we also are going to need ordinance 2020-18E to pass, so I can put the down payment down, and then 2020-19E could just die for lack of motion, perhaps.
Thank you very much, sir.
Mhm.
And Ms. Berner, whenever you're ready, please.
Okay. Councilwoman Hopkins,
No,
Councilwoman Noakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Cobb,
Yes.
Councilwoman Eggleston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Lowry,
Yes.
Councilman Grimm.
Yes.
That motion passes 6-0.
And thank you very much.
So on.
6-1, sorry.
Okay, 6-1, okay. Awesome.
And
Okay.
moving on when you're ready.
Moving on to 2020-18E, an ordinance authorizing the expenditure of funds over $20,000 for the purchase of providing for a down payment for the purchase of the current city building and declaring an emergency.
So moved.
Second.
Sure. I think Miss Eggleston was the first. And a second we need.
Second.
Eggleston said nothing.
Oh, okay.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, thank you, Vice Mayor.
Second.
And second
Okay.
by Mr. Cook. Cobb.
No.
Sorry.
Yep. Got it.
Vice Mayor Cook. I know we need to put names up there so you can see it.
Those delays will get you.
All right. Any discussion or anything?
Yeah, anything you need to go over, Mr. Bridge, on this one again?
No, I'm good. And thank you guys for the open and honest analysis tonight. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Okay, so this will be the vote for the down payment.
Okay. Councilwoman Eggleston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Lowry,
Yes.
Councilman Grimm,
Yes.
Councilwoman Hopkins,
yes.
Councilwoman Noakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Cobb.
Yes.
That motion passes 7-0.
Thank you very much.
All right. Moving on to 2020-19E, introduction, public hearing and action tonight. An ordinance authorizing the expenditure of funds over $20,000 for the purchase of the current city building and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
So move.
Second.
No. We can let this actually die because since we're not going to be paying cash for it, there's really no purpose for this one.
Okay. Do they want to retract their motion?
You
I'll
can-
retract mine.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
But the down payment's 20,000.
Yeah, we've got to okay this one because he's gonna make a payment of 28,000 down, which is over and above the budget.
We just passed that in 2018.
That was 18E, where he can
Right.
pay the 28.
Okay, so what was, oh, for cash, okay.
Yeah. 18E was the payment, and then right.
So this just needs to die.
Correct.
All right, motion dies. Would you like me to move on?
Yes, please.
Okay, other business, the city offices will be closed on Monday, May 25th to observe Memorial Day. Anything else?
No, I don't think so. Mr. Bridge, you have something to add?
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know if I can ask this, but at the last meeting, Mr. Graham had brought up some things about lifting the state of emergency, and unfortunately, we will not be able to discuss that to the 18th because it was not on the agenda for tonight. Is
Mr. Mayor,
that something you'd like me to do?
since most businesses will be open with 2 weeks anyway, there's no need.
Okay, thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Bridge, real quick, I just wanted to add, it's kind of unfortunate we've been painted into a box with this city building, but I guess that's the chances you take when you rent your property out for your office space. But, thank you for all the work you've put in on this over the past couple of days, and I appreciate it.
I appreciate the kind words, and I just want to say, and I know I said at the last meeting, these past two meetings with council members, you guys have really critically thought about how you want to move forward. And of course, we're always going to have opinion on one side and opinion on the other side. And my job is just to give the fair stuff there, and I'll put my little opinion in there as well. But this council, and the gentleman I was talking to today, I actually complimented you guys. This council is one of the most critically thinking councils that I've worked with since I've been in New Carlisle. And I'd like to thank each and every one of you because it does make my job easier. And you guys have really stepped up this year, and I truly appreciate your dedication, and not only me, but also the great city of New Carlisle. So thank you very much.
Well, it's interesting because, for me personally, I could see both sides clearly.
Sure.
But, in the conversations with everybody, it was an enjoyable conversation at the same time. So,
Absolutely.
thank you to the rest of the council also.
Sure.
So anybody else have anything to add?
Motion adjourned.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All right. We had a motion, I think, first by Mr. Cobb and a second by Mr. Grimm.
Graham,
Okay. All right. Councilwoman Hopkins,
yes.
Councilwoman Noakowski,
Yes.
Councilman Cobb.
Yeah.
Councilwoman Eggleston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Cook,
Yes.
Mayor Lowry,
Yes.
Councilman Grimm.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn is accepted, 7-0.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bridge, thank you again, and we'll talk to everyone later.
Everyone stay safe.
Stay
Yep.
safe.
See y'all.